Hello, welcome to Living Environment Unit 2. We're going to start Unit 2 today, which is cells, biomolecules, and enzymes. And we're going to start today with day 1 of cells. So let's go ahead and begin. All right. So we're looking at Unit 2, Day 1, cells. So today's aim is what are cells composed of? And we're about to find out. So at the top, the do noun asks, what do all living things share in common? So there are many answers to this question, as you guys may be familiar with the characteristics of life. So let's go ahead and write 2. So what do all living things share in common? Well, we know that what do all living things share in common? All living things are made, oh dear. There we go, forgive me. So all living things are made up of cells. Living things grow, change, and develop. And there are several other things that you could say that all living things have in common. But this first one here is what we're going to focus on today. So you may have heard of cell theory before, but there are 3 basic tenets of cell theory. So the first one is all living things are composed of cells. And I will share a video about cell theory and the characteristics of living things to provide you some more context here, but it's very important to remember the 3 tenets of cell theory, but they're very simplistic. So all living things are made of cells. The cell is the basic unit of life. What do we mean by that? So the smallest thing that is considered living is a cell, meaning that in my body and in your body, all of our organs are alive, all of our tissues are alive, even down to the cells themselves are alive. So they make up, cells themselves grow and change and develop, and cells themselves are living things. But you may be already thinking, what's inside the cell that's not alive? And that is what we're going to talk about in part B. So the cell is the basic unit of life. And last one, all cells arise from other cells. That may remind you of the law of thermodynamics that states that energy cannot be created or destroyed, just transferred. And in this case, life is not created, but rather all cells are arising from other cells that are already living. Pretty cool. So now let's talk about part B, organelles. And what is an organelle? So you can see there, it's an organ forgive me guys, my pages is being weird. So organelles are like little small organs within the cell. So they are the functional units of a cell. So just like in our bodies, our heart pumps blood and our brain sends neural impulses, within a cell there are different specialized structures that perform different roles in order for the cell itself to carry out its life functions. So we're going to start with the first organelle that is rigid and tough and made of cellulose. It protects and supports the cell, and it only occurs in plant cells. So here we're talking about the cell wall. And in this unit, we will see plant and animal cells. And in the microscope lab that you guys completed at the end of Unit 1, you observed both human and plant cells. And you may have noticed that the human blood cells are round in shape, but the onion cells that you observed had a rectangular shape. And what gives plant cells that rectangular shape is this rigid, tough cell wall that protects and supports the cell and provides its structure. In humans and other animals, our cells are not what provides structure to our bodies, but rather our bone structure provides that structure and rigidity. So all of our individual cells are more round and soft as compared to plant cells. Next, we have something that occurs in both animal and plant cells. This is a thin covering that protects cells, and it is the protective barrier that controls what materials, and this is the most important aspect, controls what materials enter and leave the cell. We are talking about the cell membrane. And the cell membrane is one of the most important cell organelles, and I will highlight a few more. So this next organelle is a jelly-like substance that contains the organelles. So within the cell itself, inside of the cell membrane, there is this jelly-like substance, and inside of this jelly, suspended, kind of like inside Jell-O, you can sort of see fruit floating. This jelly-like substance pads and supports the organelles inside of the cell. This occurs in both plant and animal cells, and this organelle is called the cytoplasm. Next, we're talking about the dense circular structure that contains DNA. DNA is the genetic material that contains the instructions for how to construct all the different parts of our bodies, all of the different proteins that we need to carry out all of our different life functions. I'm hoping that you all know that, but don't worry, we'll get much more into DNA during Unit 7, Genetics. But this dense circular structure is the control center for the cell. So it controls all of the cell's activities, kind of like the brain of the cell itself. It's in both plant and animal cells. And if you know any cell organelles already, I'm guessing you know this one. We are talking about the nucleus. And the nucleus is another very important organelle. So next, we're talking about small speck-like structures made up of RNA. found in the cytoplasm or on/near the endoplasmic reticulum. And I strongly encourage you all to look at images of plant and animal cells side by side, and I will include that with tomorrow's notes. But we're looking at the small speck-like structures made up of RNA found in the cytoplasm or on/near the endoplasmic reticulum, and this is the key component of this organelle. This organelle synthesizes proteins. So a very common question you might get is, what is the site of protein synthesis? And you will respond, the ribosomes. And this is another important organelle, but the most important thing that you need to remember about it is that it is the site of protein synthesis. So this is where the proteins are made. Next, located in the cytoplasm, a bean-shaped structure with grooves that supplies energy in the form of ATP for the cell through the process of cellular respiration. This occurs in both plant and animal cells, and this is the most important organelle. Looks like bean-shaped structure, sort of like that. And this is the powerhouse of the cell. You may have heard it referred to, usually depicted in the color yellow. When it's in color, we are talking about the mitochondria. Mitochondria. So the mitochondria is, again, the most important organelle. And we're gonna speak a lot more about cellular respiration during our next unit. So next, we're talking about the large open storage area that is smaller in animal cells that stores food, water, waste, or enzymes, and occurs in both plant and animal cells. We are talking about the vacuole. Oops. So the central vacuole is smaller in animal cells. You may see some information, especially if it's older or more outdated information, that says that there is no vacuole in animal cells. That's not true, but it is true that the central vacuole, that open space, is much larger in plant cells, and that's because that open space helps provide rigidity and structure to the plants themselves. And this is one of the most important organelles that exists just in plant cells. And we are talking about a green structure that contains chlorophyll. It captures sunlight and uses it to synthesize glucose, or sugar, which is food for the plant through the process of photosynthesis. And we are talking about the chloroplast. So the chloroplast and the mitochondria look somewhat similar to each other, except the chloroplast often looks like there's a stack of pancakes on the inside. And these two organelles have a reciprocal relationship with each other, which we're going to talk about in Unit 3. So these are the functional units, the most important organelles that we need to remember for Unit 2. So let's go ahead and review. Today, we talked about the cell wall, which exists only in plant cells, and the chloroplast, which exists only in plant cells, the cell membrane, the cytoplasm, the nucleus, ribosomes, mitochondria, and the vacuole that exist in both plant and animal cells. Today's aim was what are cells composed of, and our one-word answer is organelles, which are the functional units of the cell. I hope you guys enjoyed that and it made sense. Please don't forget to go ahead and complete your exit ticket. Go ahead and like this video. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Go ahead and hit that little bell so you can get notifications. And please comment on the video if you have any questions, concerns, or noticed anything interesting as you were preparing these notes yourselves. And again, I will provide you guys with some additional visual resources, because if you were here in person, you know we'd be drawing these cells. Have a great day. See you all tomorrow. Bye.